What if everything you believed about your family was a carefully crafted lie? That question began haunting me the night. I found an old photograph buried inside a cracked wooden box at the back of my grandmother's wardrobe. The face in the picture was unfamiliar, yet unsettlingly familiar at the same time. It wasn't just curiosity that struck me, it was fear, because something about that image felt deliberately hidden. Families forget many things with time, but they don't erase people without reason. That single discovery didn't just spark questions. It opened a door I was never meant to walk through. At first, I assumed the photo was a distant relative, someone insignificant who simply faded from memory. But the more I stared at it, the more the details troubled me. The man stood confidently beside influential figures I recognized from history books. His posture, his expression, this was not someone ordinary. Yet, when I asked my parents about him, their reactions were strangely defensive. They dismissed it as nothing important and changed the subject quickly. That was when I realized this wasn't about forgotten history. This was about a secret deliberately buried, generation after generation. Curiosity soon turned into obsession. I began searching through old letters, documents, and records stored in dusty boxes no one had touched in decades. Among them was a partially burned document with a familiar surname, but pair of a first name no one had ever mentioned. The ink was faded, but the seal was unmistakable. It belonged to an institution known for shaping powerful figures behind the scenes. My hand shook as I realized this wasn't just a relative. This person had influence, real influence. And for reasons unknown, my family had erased him from our story entirely. The first Rewrote lead came from something unexpectedly simple, a property record. It showed that land my family still owned today was originally acquired under circumstances that didn't add up. The dates were wrong. The names didn't align. And the transaction was far too favorable to be a coincidence. That small inconsistency led me deeper, into archives, registries, and whispered accounts. Each step felt like falling further into a tunnel with no exit. I began to understand why no one spoke of him. Because the truth wasn't just uncomfortable. It was powerful enough to rewrite everything. When I finally uncovered his full identity, my chest tightened. This forgotten ancestor wasn't just involved in history. He operated quietly within its shadows. He moved among political leaders, industrial pioneers, and influential power brokers. His name never appeared in headlines, yet his decisions shaped outcomes that affected thousands. He was the kind of person history remembers indirectly, through consequences, not credit. Suddenly, his disappearance from our family narrative made sense. Power attracts danger, and silence, I realized, had been chosen as a form of survival. Evidence of his influence was everywhere once I knew where to look. Letters referenced decisions made in private meetings. Financial records reveal strategic investments that altered industries. Even local legends hinted at a silent hand guiding events behind the scenes. The more I uncovered, the clearer it became. My ancestor had lived a double life. One face of the public, another hidden entirely. And when that life ended, it didn't simply fade. It was deliberately erased. Not out of shame alone, but out of fear of what knowledge could awaken in future generations. What disturbed me most wasn't his power. It was how directly it shaped my family's present, our unexpected wealth, our sudden relocations across generations, even the talents that seemed to run in the family. They weren't coincidences. They were ripples. His choices decades ago had silently steered our path. Everything we believed was earned through struggle alone was also inherited through secrecy. The realization was unsettling, because it meant my identity wasn't just self-made. It was influenced by a past I never agreed to carry. The family stories I grew up with began to unravel, the humble beginnings, the narratives of pure hardship. They weren't entirely false, but they were incomplete. Crucial chapters had been removed. In their place were simplified versions, safer stories designed to protect us from the truth. Learning this didn't just anger me. It confused me. If our history had been edited, what else had been reshaped? How much of who I was had been built on half-truths designed to keep me ignorant? Emotionally, the discovery hit harder than expected. There was awe at his intelligence, his strategic mind, his reach, but there was also grief for the honesty denied to us. I felt disconnected from my own roots, unsure which parts of my identity were truly mine. Knowing that a single person's hidden life had shaped generations made me question free will itself. Were we walking paths chosen for us long before we were born, or did knowing the truth finally give us the power to choose differently? As I dug deeper, admiration gave way to discomfort. My ancestors' influence wasn't always noble. Some decisions benefited many, but others caused harm. He had compromised morals in pursuit of long-term goals. People suffered quietly because of choices he made from behind closed doors. This was the part my family never wanted to confront. Power leaves scars, even when intentions are complex. Realizing this forced me to see legacy not as something glorious, but as something complicated, heavy, and deeply human. There were moments I wished I could stop, that I could unlearn everything and return to ignorance. But once you uncover the truth, you can't bear it again. The deeper I went, the clearer it became that erasing him from our family history was not just denial, it was avoidance. Avoidance of accountability. Avoidance of responsibility. Avoidance of questions about who we really were. And suddenly, I understood that silence had been easier than honesty, but it had also robbed us of understanding ourselves fully. The dual nature of his legacy forced me to reconsider how we define success. He achieved influence most people only dream of, but at what cost? He protected his family, yet burdened them with secrecy. He shaped history, yet vanished from it. Was that victory or failure? That question lingered as I compared his life to mine. Ambition suddenly felt heavier. Achievement no longer seemed innocent. Because every choice echoes forward, sometimes in ways we'll never live to see. Telling my family what I had discovered wasn't easy. Some refused to listen. Others reacted with quiet relief, as if they had been waiting for someone brave enough to confront the truth. For the first time, conversations became honest. Painful, but honest. We spoke about fear, protection, and the belief that some truths are too dangerous to pass on. That night, our family didn't break, but it changed. Secrets lose power when spoken aloud, and silence finally loosens its grip. Integrating this knowledge into my identity was the hardest part. I wasn't just the person I thought I was. I was also a continuation of choices made long ago. But instead of feeling trapped, I felt informed. Knowing the full story didn't chain me. It freed me. Because understanding where you come from gives you clarity about where you're going. Legacy doesn't dictate destiny. Awareness reshapes it. I began to see my life differently. My strengths weren't accidents. My instincts weren't random. But neither were they obligations. Knowing the past didn't mean repeating it. It meant learning from it. I could choose transparency where secrecy once ruled. Integrity where compromise once thrived. My ancestor's story became a lesson, not a blueprint. And for the first time, I felt truly in control of my future. The responsibility of knowing such a complex past is heavy, but it's also empowering. History doesn't disappear just because we ignore it. It waits, and when uncovered, it demands reflection. My family's story didn't become darker. It became real, flawed, human, and that honesty brought unexpected peace. Because perfection is fragile. Truth endures. What shocked me most was how common this kind of silence is. Families everywhere hide uncomfortable truths. Stories are simplified. edges are smoothed, but buried history shapes us whether we acknowledge it or not. The difference is whether we face it consciously or let it control us quietly. My journey wasn't just about my family anymore. It was about understanding how identity, power, and legacy intertwine for all of us. I realized that many people walk through life unaware of the forces that shaped them long before birth. Untold stories influence confidence, fear, ambition, and limits. And sometimes the key to understanding ourselves isn't found in the future, but in the past we were never told about. That realization changed how I see everyone around me. This story isn't about glorifying power or condemning it. It's about complexity, about accepting that our roots can hold both pride and pain. That growth begins when we stop pretending our history is simple. The truth may be uncomfortable, but it's also grounding. It gives context, and context gives clarity. Looking back now, I'm grateful I found that photograph. Grateful I asked questions others avoided, because knowing the full story allowed me to reclaim ownership of my identity. I am not just a product of secrecy. I am a choice maker, and that distinction matters. My family no longer speaks in whispers about the past. We don't celebrate it blindly, nor do we run from it. We acknowledge it, learn from it, and move forward with intention. That shift alone changed everything. The forgotten ancestor no longer haunts our story. He informs it. His life stands as a reminder that influence without reflection carries consequences, and that legacy is not just what we leave behind, but what we choose to pass forward. If there's one lesson this journey taught me, it's this: your history doesn't define your limits. It reveals your starting point. And from there, the choices are yours. Some truths sleep for generations, waiting for the right moment and the right person to wake them. When they do, they don't destroy identity. They deepen it. So if you've ever felt there was more to your story than you were told, trust that instinct. Ask the questions. Look deeper. Because sometimes the truth hidden in your past isn't meant to trap you. It's meant to set you free.